Well, hello everyone and welcome to February's tour on the 26th, right near the end. And it's a glorious hot day, about 16 degrees, and it's been a pretty reasonable month. Some records have been broken for warm days across the UK. And as usual, kicking off with the rhubarb bed. Just last week it's been going great guns, so that's taking advantage of the lovely weather. And we've got wallflowers down the front there, and in front of those we've got some tulips just starting to pop through. And just moving round. I cut the grass the other day, it's been that mild. And the strawberry bed with some garlic coming through. And our broad beans. There have been a few misfires, and I mentioned in the last video about the neighbouring shed shading some of it. We popped some more beans in there, but they've no sign of them as yet. And coming round to the gooseberries and blackberries, or blackcurrants rather. I've got blackberries on the brain. A little bit of sign of life there, but we're hoping for good things this year. Obviously first year, so better things in future years. And the baths have been neatened up. I dug the soil out of them so that I could level them properly. And the idea is we're going to have tumbling tomatoes and radish in this one here, and a herb bed in that one there. And round to the first of the, actually the second of the 10 8x4 beds. First one being the broad beans one. So this has got spinach in it and some cover crops. And there's more spinach over there. A few field beans as well throwing in. Some ryegrass and field beans. And the mustard has died off. So that's all been chopped down. It's amazing how quickly it just disappears. And more cover crops, some vetch and ryegrass. There is vetch in there, honestly. It hasn't done as well as the field beans and the ryegrass in some beds. And the peach peregrine, shall I say, that's starting to bud. Taking advantage of that south-facing compost bin area there. Just coming round to the corral and the shed. I'm thinking I might just put up another pallet sort of in front of the part of the front of the corral there, just to block it off a little bit. And the shed is getting there. We're going to be ordering some wood for the new door, try and finish that off. I've just put together this new bench, which is one of those benches that looks a lot better than its cost. I think it was about £45, and that included a cushion. And that was to replace the one over there, which is hopeless. And if you're anything more than 10 stone, then you really don't bother with that sort of thing, because it's just too flimsy. So coming around to probably the main thing that's changed since the last video, a month ago, is the bank area. And I've popped in a bit more terracing there and feather boarded it. And I've painted, that gave me an opportunity to remove the water butts and paint the side of the shed, although I'm still not convinced about that light green colour. And in the process of clearing the back there, I took out the blackberry. That's where I meant to say blackberry. The wild one basically that was there, and I've put in an order for a thornless variety called Waldo, which I'm hoping to pop in there, train it up over the communal or the perimeter hedge. So here's the pond, massively over-engineered. So I put in a gravel lining sort of edge to hide the black liner, and I dug what I thought was a massive hole, and then I measured it, the depth, and found out that at the deepest point it's only 14 inches, so well done me there. So we popped in a couple of baskets with a pygmy water lily. Now we've had that at home for 20, maybe 15 years, never had a flower off of it, so I'm hoping I might do, but I thought it might need a bit more depth than 14 inches, so we'll see how that goes this year. So that's all been finished off with bark, and this is now a planting opportunity mostly for flowers, flowering shrubs. And speaking of flowers, we've got the more wallflowers, signs of life there. Not so much signs of life from the comfrey or the borage. Definitely signs of life on the pluot. Now 3000% mentioned how her melon and squashes hadn't done well growing up something, and that was the plan this year, was to grow some butternut squash up the rose arch here. And I'm wondering whether it might just be too exposed, and that may explain the problem we had with our rather short sweet peas growing up the obelisk last year. It might just be a little bit of too much crosswind here. And the red love apple tree, not sure it's showing any signs as yet. And we've still got some covering green compost there, composting down over what's going to be the sweet corn and parsnip bed. And more strawberries over there, and more cover crops. Now we were re-watching Dan Kittredge about talking about his covering crops, and he actually plants his cover crops before the produce is over at the end of the previous year, so we might try and do that this year. These cover crops have been chopped down, and the zabroon shallots have gone in there. More cover crops on that end there. And this is the bed where we had golden beetroot and pak choy, and we've popped in some of last year's peas. They might be viable. If they are, we'll just take them as pea shoots rather than letting them grow on. And the cover crops around the garlic has been removed, and the garlic seems to be faring very well. There doesn't seem to have been any problem with competition with the cover crops and the garlic. And that's the fallow bed over there. And more spinach. And the rosemary has survived all right. And there's not really much sign of life on the fruit trees. I'm crossing my fingers for the fruit trees. It is a bit of a gamble having such a variety of them. There was a question that cropped up in Gardener's Question Time recently. A lady who had an allotment who tried 4 times to grow a cherry tree and failed, and no one else on the allotment had managed to grow a cherry tree. And basically the panel said, well, your allotment doesn't grow cherry trees. And sometimes that's the way it is with the soil in places, and I'm hoping that, although we're not growing a cherry, but the variety we've got, I'm hoping they all do okay. So the lemon balm is popping up in amongst the pinks. That's coming back. I imagine that's not going to stay there. I just put it there to save it, and it'll probably end up in the herb bath. And the pots are waiting for the potatoes. I had to put down this metal plate because the foxes decided that they wanted to rip up the cardboard there and have a good dig. No idea why. And here we are with the sweet peas that are in the little propagators. They were chitted, popped in to the situation we want them to be in, so we're hoping that does okay. But we've got other sweet peas at home, so that we might pop them in when they're a little bit bigger. And the Fulton Strawberry Surprise rhubarb, there is a little bit of sign of life, but it is a late cropping variety and it is its first year, so I'm not expecting it to really be flourishing at the end of February. It is the end of February, yes, I have to keep telling myself that. So I did have a look underneath that bucket about a week ago, and it's not as high as I thought it was going to be, and that's possibly because I failed to cover the whole of the crown. It's just so big. So maybe these little bits here that you can see are feeding back the light benefits and stopping it from being completely forced. But it's only about a week to go, and it's had its full 8 weeks of cover, and I'll take the bucket off and harvest whatever its state and size. Right, there we are. That is the plot, end of February. Hope everybody's keeping well and having a good time gardening. I will be speaking to you in a month's time. Bye for now.